The grand ballroom of the Manhattan Lux Hotel sparkled with crystal chandeliers that cast dancing reflections across marble floors. 9-year-old Mia Torres pressed her face against the service door window, her dark eyes wide with wonder as she watched elegant guests in evening gowns and tuxedos glide across the polished surface. The annual Pierce Foundation Charity Gala was the most glamorous event of the year, and Mia had never seen anything so beautiful. Good start. I need to continue building this scene, introducing the characters naturally and setting up their first meeting. I should avoid the punctuation marks the user mentioned and keep the language simple but engaging. Her mother. Maria emerged from the kitchen hallway, wiping her hands on her cleaning uniform. She spotted Mia and sighed with a mixture of affection and exasperation. "Mia, honey, what did I tell you about wandering around during events? You need to stay in the break room." "But Mama, it's so pretty," Mia whispered, still mesmerized by the scene before her. "Look at all those people. They look like princes and princesses." Maria knelt down beside her daughter, smoothing back Mia's unruly dark curls. At 9 years old, Mia was all knobby knees and bright curiosity, wearing a simple cotton dress that Maria had sewn herself. "They're just people, sweetheart. People with fancy clothes and money, but still just people." "Who's that man?" Mia pointed to a tall figure standing near the center of the ballroom. He was younger than most of the guests, perhaps in his mid-20s, with sandy brown hair and a confident posture that drew attention even in a room full of important people. "That's Jonathan Pierce," Maria explained quietly. "He owns this hotel and about 20 others across the country. His family started the Pierce Foundation that helps children go to college. He's a good man from what I hear." Mia studied Jonathan with intense focus. He was laughing at something an older gentleman had said, his smile genuine and warm. Unlike some of the other guests who seemed stiff and uncomfortable, he moved through the crowd with easy grace, stopping to shake hands and exchange pleasantries with everyone he encountered. "He doesn't look like the mean rich people in movies," Mia observed. "Because he's not," Maria said. "Now come on, I need to check the West Wing restrooms before the next hour." But fate had other plans. As Maria stood up, her cleaning cart accidentally bumped into a service table, sending a stack of fresh linens tumbling onto the ballroom floor. The white sheets spilled through the service door, creating a snowy cascade that drew immediate attention. "Oh no," Maria gasped, rushing to gather the linens. Mia dropped to her knees to help, her small hands working as fast as they could. "Please, allow me to help." A deep, pleasant voice made them both look up. Jonathan Pierce stood before them, already bending to pick up several sheets. Up close, Mia could see that his eyes were a warm hazel color, and his smile reached all the way to those eyes. "Mr. Pierce, sir, I'm so sorry," Maria stammered, her face flushing with embarrassment. "I didn't mean to cause a disruption." "No disruption at all," Jonathan assured her, handing her the linens he'd collected. "Accidents happen." His gaze shifted to Mia, who was staring at him with open fascination. "And who might this young lady be?" "This is my daughter Mia," Maria said. "She shouldn't be out here." "I apologize." "Nonsense. Any daughter of my staff is welcome." Jonathan extended his hand to Mia with the same respect he'd show an adult. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mia." Mia shook his hand solemnly, her small fingers disappearing in his larger ones. "You have a very nice hotel, Mr. Pierce. I counted 17 chandeliers from the door." Jonathan laughed, a sound of genuine delight. 17 exactly. You have a good eye for detail." "Mia loves numbers," Maria explained, gathering the last of the linens. "She's always counting and calculating things." "A mathematician in the making," Jonathan said approvingly. "The world needs more of those." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. "Tell you what, Mia, when you grow up, if you ever need anything, a job recommendation, advice, anything at all, you call this number." Deal. Mia took the card carefully, studying the embossed letters that spelled out his name and title. She looked up at him with sudden determination that seemed far beyond her 9 years. "Mr. Pierce, when I grow up, I'm going to marry you." The statement hung in the air for a moment. Maria's eyes went wide with mortification, but Jonathan simply smiled, not laughing or dismissing the child's declaration. "Is that so?" he asked gently. Yes, Mia said with absolute certainty. You're nice and smart and you help people. When I'm older and prettier and smarter, I'll come back and you'll see. We'll get married, Mia. Maria exclaimed, her face burning. I'm so sorry, Mr. Pierce. She doesn't understand. But Jonathan held up a hand, his expression thoughtful as he looked at the earnest little girl before him. How old are you, Mia? 9. But I'll be 18 in 9 years. That's not so long. I suppose it's not, Jonathan agreed. He knelt down to her level, his tone serious but kind. Mia, 9 years is a long time. You're going to grow and change and meet many wonderful people. But I'll tell you what, you keep that card safe. Study hard. Be the best version of yourself you can be. And if in 9 years you still feel the same way, you come find me. Fair. You promise you'll remember me? Mia asked, clutching the business card to her chest. I promise I'll never forget the girl who boldly announced her intentions at my charity gala, Jonathan said with a warm smile. He stood up and nodded respectfully to Maria. You have a remarkable daughter, Mrs. Torres. Take care of her. Yes. Jonathan returned to his guests. Maria pulled Mia back toward the service area. Mia, sweetheart, you can't just tell people you're going to marry them. Why not? You always say I should be honest about what I want. Maria couldn't help but smile despite her embarrassment. That man is 17 years older than you and a billionaire. He probably meets 100 pretty educated women every week, and I'll just have to be prettier and more educated than all of them, Mia declared with the confidence only a child could possess. That night, back in their tiny one-bedroom apartment in Queens, Mia carefully tucked Jonathan Pierce's business card into a small wooden box where she kept her most precious possessions. She didn't know it then, but that box would travel with her through 9 years of challenges, his disappointments, and relentless determination. 3 months later, Maria's hours were cut at the hotel due to budget restructuring. Unable to afford their apartment, the Torres family made the difficult decision to move to Boston, where Maria's sister could help them get back on their feet. On their last day in New York, Mia stood on the sidewalk outside the Manhattan Lux Hotel, looking up at its towering facade. I'll be back, she whispered to herself, her hand wrapped around the small wooden box in her pocket. I made a promise, and I always keep my promises. The Greyhound bus pulled away from the curb, carrying the Torres family toward an uncertain future. But in her seat, clutching her box of treasures, Mia Torres was already planning her return. She would study harder than anyone. She would make herself indispensable. She would become someone worthy of standing beside Jonathan Pierce. And in exactly 9 years, she would come back and remind him of the promise they'd made. The city lights of New York faded behind them, but Mia never took her eyes off the skyline until it disappeared completely. Some might call it a childish fantasy, but to Mia, it was a goal, a destination, a future she could already see clearly in her mind. She was 9 years old, and she had just set the course for the rest of her life. 9 years had transformed Mia Torres in ways that would have amazed the little girl who once pressed her face against a hotel service door. At 18, she stood in front of the mirror in her small Boston apartment, adjusting the collar of her navy blue blazer. Her dark curls, once wild and unmanageable, now fell in polished waves past her shoulders. She had grown tall and graceful, with the kind of quiet elegance that came from years of observing, learning, and preparing for this exact moment. The acceptance letter from Pierce Enterprises lay on her desk. Next to the worn business card she had carried for 9 years, the card was faded now, its edges soft from being handled countless times. But the name embossed on it still made her heart race. Jonathan Pierce, CEO, Pierce Hotel Group and Enterprises. Her mother Maria entered the room, pride and worry competing in her expression. You don't have to do this, sweetheart. You've got accepted to 3 different companies. Any of them would be lucky to have you. I know, Mama, Mia said softly, picking up the business card. But this is the one I've been working toward since I was 9 years old. Maria sighed, sitting on the edge of the bed. The years in Boston had been hard but purposeful. Mia had attended public school while Maria worked 2 jobs, but every sacrifice had been worth it. Mia had graduated as valedictorian, earned a full scholarship to Boston University, and completed a degree in business management in just 3 years, graduating summa cum laude at 17. She had spent her 18th birthday applying to Pierce Enterprises. Might not even remember you, Maria said gently. It's been 9 years, and you were just a child. I know, Mia admitted, slipping the card into her purse. But I remember him. And I made myself a promise that day. I'm going to keep it. The flight from Boston to New York felt both endless and too short. Mia spent the time reviewing everything she knew about Pierce Enterprises. In the 9 years since she'd left, Jonathan had expanded the company from 20 hotels to 53, branching into luxury resorts and sustainable tourism. He had been featured in Forbes, Business Insider, and Fortune magazine. At 35, he was one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the hospitality industry. She had followed every article, every interview, every public appearance. She knew he was unmarried, that he sat on the boards of 5 charitable foundations, that he had a reputation for being brilliant but demanding. She knew everything about him except whether he ever thought about the little girl who had promised to marry him, Pierce. The tower dominated the Manhattan skyline, a gleaming structure of glass and steel that reflected the morning sun. Mia stood on the sidewalk, looking up at the building, just as she had looked up at the hotel 9 years ago. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her portfolio. But her voice was steady when she checked in with building security. Mia Torres. Here for the junior assistant position. The lobby was magnificent. All polished marble and modern art. Mia took the elevator to the 42nd floor, where the executive offices were located. The receptionist, a polished woman in her 40s named Patricia, greeted her with a professional smile. Miss Torres, welcome. Mr. Pierce is running a few minutes behind schedule. Please have a seat and he'll be with you shortly. Mia sat in one of the leather chairs, her portfolio balanced on her knees. Through the glass walls, she could see people moving purposefully through the office space. Everyone looked busy, focused, exactly the kind of environment where she knew she could thrive. Miss Torres, Patricia called. Mr. Pierce will see you now. Mia stood, smoothed her skirt, and walked toward the corner office. The door was open, and she could see Jonathan standing by the windows, his back to her as he spoke on the phone. He had changed in 9 years, his frame more filled out, his posture radiating the confidence of someone who had built an empire. His hair was still sandy brown, but cut shorter, more executive. Yes, I understand the concerns about the Miami property, he was saying, but the location is prime, and the numbers don't lie. We proceed as planned. He turned as he spoke and gestured for Mia to enter and sit. Mia's breath caught. He was looking directly at her, but there was no recognition in his eyes. To him, she was just another candidate, another face in a long line of applicants. She sat down, fighting the urge to remind him immediately. No, she had to earn this position on her own merit first. Jonathan ended his call and took his seat behind the massive desk. Miss Torres, he said, opening her file. I have to say, your credentials are impressive. Youngest graduate in your class, top honors, internships at 3 major firms. Why Pierce Enterprises? Mia met his gaze steadily. This was the moment she had rehearsed 1,000 times. Because Pierce Enterprises represents the intersection of luxury and purpose. Your hotels don't just provide service, they create experiences. Your foundation doesn't just give money, it transforms lives. I want to be part of something that matters. Jonathan's eyebrows rose slightly. That's a polished answer. Did you prepare it? I've been preparing for this interview for 9 years, Mia said honestly. 9 years? Jonathan leaned back in his chair, studying her more carefully. You would have been, what, 9 years old 9 years ago? Exactly 9 years old, Mia confirmed. I was very specific about the timeline. Something flickered in Jonathan's expression, a hint of curiosity. Have we met before, Miss Torres? We have, Mia said. But I'd prefer to earn this position on my qualifications first, if you don't mind. After that, I'll gladly remind you of the circumstances. Jonathan looked intrigued now, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Fair enough. Tell me about your experience with crisis management. For the next 45 minutes, they discussed business strategy, market analysis, and operational efficiency. Mia drew on every lesson she had learned, every case study she had analyzed, every late night spent preparing for this opportunity. She could see Jonathan's interest growing with each answer. his questions becoming more complex and nuanced. Finally, he closed her file and regarded her with open curiosity. "Miss Torres, I'm going to be honest. You're overqualified for a junior assistant position. Your background suggests you could walk into a management role at most firms." "I'm not interested in most firms," Mia said simply. "I'm interested in this one. I'm willing to start wherever you need me because I know I'll prove myself indispensable." "Confident?" Jonathan observed. "Realistic," Mia corrected. "I know what I'm capable of, Mr. Pierce. Give me 3 months. If I haven't exceeded every expectation, I'll resign voluntarily." Jonathan stood and walked to the window, his hands in his pockets. "You're hired. You start Monday. But I'm curious, Miss Torres. When exactly did we meet?" Mia stood as well, reaching into her purse. She pulled out the faded business card and placed it on his desk. Jonathan picked it up, recognition dawning slowly across his features as he turned the card over in his hands. "The charity gala," he said softly. "The little girl with the linens?" "The little girl who said she was going to marry you," Mia added, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Jonathan's head snapped up, his eyes wide. "Mia. Little Mia Torres." "Not so little anymore," she said with a slight smile. "You told me to come find you in 9 years if I still felt the same way. Well, Mr. Pierce, it's been 9 years, 2 months, and 6 days, and I'm here." The silence in the office was profound. Jonathan stared at her, taking in the transformation from the earnest 9-year-old to the poised young woman standing before him. "You're serious? You actually came back?" "I always keep my promises," Mia said. "You gave me that card and told me to be the best version of myself. So I did. I studied harder than anyone in my school. I worked 3 jobs to help my mother while maintaining a perfect GPA. I graduated from college in 3 years because every day I spent not being ready was a day wasted. I came back because I said I would, and because you're still the person I saw that night. Someone worth keeping a promise for." Jonathan sat down slowly, still holding the old business card. "Mia, you were 9 years old. People change. Dreams change. Some dreams don't," Mia said quietly. "Some dreams grow stronger with time, with purpose, with every obstacle overcome to achieve them." "You're 18, Jonathan said, and there was something almost pained in his voice. I'm your boss. This is impossible. I'm not asking you to marry me today," Mia said with a gentle smile. "I'm asking you to give me the chance to prove that I'm not just that little girl anymore. I'm asking you to see me for who I've become, not who I was." Jonathan stood and walked toward her, stopping a respectful distance away. Up close, Mia could see the fine lines around his eyes, the flecks of gold in his hazel irises, the way his jaw tightened as he processed this impossible situation. "You understand that I have to treat you like any other employee," he said finally. "No favoritism, no special treatment." "I wouldn't want it any other way," Mia assured him. "I'll earn every promotion, every acknowledgement, every moment of your respect through my work alone." And this promise, this idea of marriage, Mia met his gaze without flinching. "Ask me again in a year, Mr. Pierce, after I've proven myself. After you've seen who I really am, then we can discuss whether a childhood promise has any merit in the adult world." Jonathan extended his hand. "Welcome to Pierce Enterprises, Miss Torres. I have a feeling you're going to turn my world upside down." Mia shook his hand, feeling the same electric connection she'd felt 9 years ago. "That's exactly what I'm hoping for, Mr. Pierce." 6 months had passed since Mia Torres walked into Jonathan Pierce's office with a faded business card and an impossible dream. In that time, she had become indispensable to Pierce Enterprises in ways that surprised even Jonathan himself. She had restructured the administrative workflow, saving the company $2 million in operational costs. She had identified a failing hotel acquisition in Chicago and turned the deal around with a brilliant marketing strategy. And she had done it all while maintaining absolute professionalism. Never once mentioning the promise that hung unspoken between them, Jonathan found himself watching her more than he should. The way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear when she was concentrating, the way her eyes lit up when she solved a complex problem, the way she treated everyone from the janitors to the board members with equal respect and kindness. She was no longer the little girl who had declared her intentions at a charity gala. She was a woman of substance, intelligence, unwavering determination. But the world around them was not as understanding. Jonathan's mother, Catherine Pierce, had made her disapproval abundantly clear during their weekly family dinner. "Jonathan, darling, the gossip columns are having a field day," Catherine said, setting down her wine glass with practiced elegance. The Pierce family estate in the Hamptons was the picture of old money refinement, and Catherine embodied every bit of it. "They're calling her your protege, your discovery. Some are even suggesting something more inappropriate." "Mia is my assistant," Jonathan said evenly. "An exceptional one. Her age and background are irrelevant to her performance. But they're not irrelevant to perception." His father, Richard Pierce, interjected. "The board has concerns." A teenage employee with unprecedented access to the CEO raises questions. "She's 19 now," Jonathan corrected. "And she earned every bit of that access through merit." Catherine leaned forward, her expression softening. "Jonathan, we've arranged for you to meet Charlotte Whitmore next week. She's 28, Harvard-educated. Her family owns the Whitmore hotel chain. A merger between our families would be strategic and appropriate." "I'm not interested in strategic marriages," Jonathan said firmly. "Then what are you interested in?" Richard asked pointedly. "Because if the rumors about you and that girl have any truth to them, you need to end this before it damages everything we've built." Jonathan stood abruptly. "Mia Torres is the most talented person I've hired in 5 years. I won't dismiss her to satisfy social expectations or boardroom politics. And I won't discuss my personal life as if it's a business transaction." He left the dinner early, driving back to Manhattan, with his thoughts churning. The truth was, he had been fighting his growing feelings for Mia since the day she revealed her identity. She was brilliant, beautiful, and utterly captivating. But she was also 19, his employee, and the girl who had once been a child under his protection. The ethical complications were staggering. Meanwhile, Mia was facing her own crossroads. She sat in a coffee shop near Pierce Tower with her best friend from college, Jennifer Chin, who was visiting from Boston. "So let me get this straight," Jennifer said, stirring her latte. "You've been in love with this man since you were 9. You orchestrated your entire career to work for him, and now that you're actually close to him, you won't make a move." "It's complicated," Mia said quietly. "His family hates me. The board thinks I'm a liability. The media is already whispering about inappropriate relationships. If I push too hard, I could destroy everything he's worked for. Or you could give him what he clearly wants, but is too noble to admit," Jennifer countered. "Mia, I've known you for 4 years. You don't give up on anything. Why are you giving up on this?" "I'm not giving up," Mia insisted. "I'm being strategic. I need to prove I'm not just some infatuated teenager. I need to show everyone, including Jonathan, that I belong in his world." "How are you going to do that?" Mia's eyes gleamed with determination. "The company anniversary gala is in 2 weeks. It's the biggest event of the year. I have a plan." The Pierce Enterprises' 25th anniversary gala was held at the newly renovated Manhattan Lux Hotel, the very place where a 9-year-old Mia had first met Jonathan. The ballroom had been transformed into a winter wonderland. With ice sculptures and crystal decorations that caught the light from 17 magnificent chandeliers, Mia arrived early, wearing a floor-length gown of deep emerald silk that her mother had helped her choose. It was elegant without being ostentatious, sophisticated without trying too hard. Her hair was swept up in a classic style, revealing the graceful line of her neck. When she entered the ballroom, conversations actually paused. Jonathan saw her from across the room and felt his breath catch. She was stunning, moving through the crowd with a confidence that commanded attention. But it was more than her appearance. There was something different about her tonight. A sense of purpose that made him both excited and nervous. The evening progressed smoothly. Mia had coordinated every detail of the gala flawlessly, from the timing of the speeches to the flow of the dinner service. Jonathan gave a speech thanking his team, his family, and the loyal clients who had built Pierce Enterprises into what it was today. As he spoke, his eyes kept finding Mia in the crowd. After dinner, as the orchestra began playing and guests moved to the dance floor, Charlotte Whitmore approached Jonathan. She was beautiful in a classical way, blonde and polished. Wearing a gown that probably cost more than most people's cars. "Jonathan, your mother said you might ask me to dance," Charlotte said with a practiced smile. Before Jonathan could respond, Mia appeared at his side. "I'm sorry to interrupt, Miss Whitmore, but I need to steal Mr. Pierce for a moment. Company business." Charlotte's smile tightened. "Surely business can wait until after the gala." "Actually, it can't," Mia said pleasantly, but firmly. "Mr. Pierce?" Jonathan allowed himself to be led away, noting the flash of annoyance in Charlotte's eyes. Mia guided him out of the ballroom and down a corridor, stopping in front of the old library where, 10 years ago, a little girl had made an outrageous promise. "Mia, what's this about?" Jonathan asked. "Do you remember this room?" Mia asked instead of answering. Jonathan looked around, recognition dawning. "This is where you first told me you were going to marry me. Exactly 10 years ago today," Mia confirmed. "I was 9 years old. You were 26, and I made you a promise." "Mia, we've been dancing around this for months. What do you want from me?" Mia turned to face him fully, and Jonathan saw something fierce and unshakable in her eyes. "I want you to stop pretending you don't feel what I know you feel. I want you to stop letting your family and the board and society dictate who you can care about. I want you to see me, really see me, not as the little girl I was or the employee I've become, but as the woman standing in front of you right now." "You're 19, Jonathan said, but his voice lacked conviction. "And you're 35, Mia countered. "In 5 years, I'll be 24, and you'll be 40. In 10 years, I'll be 29, and you'll be 45. The gap doesn't change, Jonathan, but its significance does. I'm not asking you to see me as your equal in experience. I'm asking you to see me as your equal in commitment, in intelligence, in the capacity to build something real." Jonathan took a step toward her, his defenses crumbling. "Do you have any idea what people will say? What my family will do? The board might force me out, and we'll start our own company," Mia said simply. "Jonathan, I didn't spend 10 years preparing for this moment to let other people's opinions stop me. And I don't think you've built an empire by caring more about perception than reality." "You're going to be the end of me," Jonathan said softly. But he was smiling. "Or the beginning of something extraordinary," Mia replied. She took a deep breath, and then, with the same boldness she'd shown at 9 years old, she dropped to one knee. Jonathan's eyes went wide. "Mia, what are you doing?" "Jonathan Pierce," Mia said clearly, her voice steady despite her racing heart. 10 years ago, I promised I would marry you. I've spent every day since then becoming someone worthy of that promise. I've proven I can succeed in your world. I've shown I can handle pressure, criticism, and doubt. Now I'm asking you the question I've wanted to ask since I was 9 years old. Will you marry me?" The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Jonathan stared down at the incredible woman kneeling before him, offering him everything with a courage that humbled him. "Stand up," he said finally. Mia stood slowly. Trying to read his expression, Jonathan reached out and cupped her face gently in his hands. "Mia Torres, you are the most remarkable person I've ever met. You're brilliant, determined, and you have a heart bigger than anyone I know. But I can't let you propose to me." Mia's face fell, but before she could speak, Jonathan dropped to his own knee. "Because I should be the one asking," he continued, pulling a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. "I bought this 3 months ago, and have been carrying it around like a fool, trying to find the right moment, the right words. But you've always been braver than me." He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant diamond ring. "Mia Torres, I fell for you the moment you walked back into my life with my own business card and a decade of determination in your eyes. I've been fighting it because I thought I was being noble, protecting you from gossip and judgment. But the truth is, I was protecting myself from believing someone could actually keep a promise like that. So yes, Mia, yes, I'll marry you. If you'll still have a stubborn fool who took way too long to realize what was right in front of him." Mia laughed and cried at the same time, pulling Jonathan to his feet and kissing him with 10 years of waiting behind it. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless and smiling. Your family's going to lose their minds, Mia whispered. Let them, Jonathan said. I spent too long building what they wanted. It's time I built what I want. They returned to the gala hand in hand, and when Jonathan announced their engagement to the shocked crowd, Mia's mother Maria burst into tears of joy. Catherine Pierce looked faint. Richard Pierce appeared apoplectic, and Charlotte Whitmore left immediately. But none of it mattered. 1 year later, Mia and Jonathan were married in a small ceremony at the Manhattan Lux Hotel. In the very ballroom where they had first met, Maria walked her daughter down the aisle, and as Mia joined hands with Jonathan, she thought about the 9-year-old girl who had dared to dream the impossible. I told you I always keep my promises, she whispered as they exchanged rings. I told you I'd never forget you. Jonathan replied, Best promise I ever made. As they kissed as husband and wife, the 17 chandeliers sparkled above them, bearing witness to a love that had waited 10 years to finally come true. Sometimes the boldest dreams, the ones everyone says are impossible, are simply the ones that require the most courage to achieve. And Mia Torres had never lacked for courage. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to hit like, share this story with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more meaningful stories.